Hi there, I'm Al-Enazi, starfighter at PWM. Investments in the private market are typically less accessible and frequently involve intricate strategies and structures. But private markets are crucial for diversification. One company says it aims to demystify private market opportunities. However, it does so in a unique way. It says it aims to identify Sharia-compliant investment products. That company is Mnaara. Now you may be wondering, what are Sharia-compliant investments? Put simply, Sharia-compliant investments must adhere to the principles and guidelines of Islamic finance. Today, I speak to Saad Adada, founder and chief executive of Mnaara, to find out more. Please join me for the Startup Show. Hi Saad Adada, great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to start off with a very broad question here. You have 20 years of experience in financial advisory and investment management. So my question is, why should one invest in private markets?
Actually, it builds on the experience that I had, which, as you mentioned, working with family offices and institutional investors. There's a clear advantage of investing into private markets in terms of the return that it can bring, and also the diversification that brings to a portfolio. Not investing in this asset class or this asset category and only limiting yourself to public equities, stocks that are traded, and maybe fixed income bonds, leaves a lot of value on the table. And this has been realized by big institutions which have been investing in private markets, whether private equity or private lending or even real estate, in a very systematic manner over years, so that they can see that advantage. And it has clearly showed those premium of return, which can reach sometimes 5 to 7% as a premium over public markets.
And I guess, what role does Mnaara play in that regard?
So usually private markets, as much as it's interesting in terms of return, also there's big risk in investing in the wrong strategy or with the wrong manager. So selecting the right fund and the fund that works for this business cycle is key. And usually selecting the right fund depends on identifying the right fund manager who's managing those funds, each in his own strategy. So at Mnaara, what we do, we handpick the right managers that are relevant to a specific business cycle. We make access to them that is affordable even with smaller ticket investors that are not necessarily big institutions. So it brings down this barrier to entry to affordable tickets. And on top of that, for those investors who are specific about how they invest, especially investors who are Sharia-compliant or investors who are specific that they don't want to invest in sectors that are not compliant, we make sure as well that those are taken into considerations in our conversations with those managers and in the terms we negotiate with them ahead of providing that access.
And you mentioned Sharia-compliant there. I guess some of our viewers may not kind of understand what a Sharia-compliant fund is. Could you kind of elaborate on that, and in what ways does it differ from conventional ones?
When we're talking about investments that are Sharia-compliant, those funds that do those investments, they have limitations or restrictions that they need to take care of when they do the investments. And it starts in the activities that those investments are made in. So effectively, they shy away from investments that have gambling, that have alcohol, tobacco, weapons, all of those considered non-ethical activities. On top of that, there's also a limitation on excessive use of debt and leverage and income coming from interest. And usually those funds as well would need to have the oversight of a Sharia board, and it's composed of Sharia scholars that overlook that those guidelines are taken into consideration.
And of course, we're in a time of geopolitical tensions, high interest rates. The question is, why now?
Even with what's happening now with the high interest rates, that impact of inflation is making people look at other asset classes in order to enhance the return of their portfolio. And private markets have been offering those returns as long as they do it the right way. So now also they're able to utilize technology more comfortably than before because they've been using it even from the public market, like trading platforms and what have you. So the awareness of this asset class and the maturity of the investor base in technology made us take that decision to create Mnaara, which is a digital platform at the end of the day that provides that access.
At Mnaara, looking ahead, do you have kind of any plans for expansion?
So the way we do it now, we're still in that early stage where we're working directly with clients, offering them that access, engaging with them personally on their investment aspirations, education, and what have you. But the plans, and we just started doing that as well, is working with other financial institutions that would like either their focus is local, or their focus is on public, or their focus is simply conventional, and they want to provide access into private markets and take consideration as well of the Sharia-compliant side of the business. So what we offer them eventually is that kind of product on an ongoing basis by hooking or by connecting to our platform, and we become partners of their choice for that kind of business. So the more we're growing, the more we're engaging with new financial institutions, whether in the UK or the rest of Europe, to provide investment options for Sharia-compliant investors.
Saad Adada, thank you.
Thank you.
The low interest rate era of recent decades has encouraged a flood of investment capital in the private market space. But the recent shift by many central banks to a higher for longer interest rate regime has slowed down fundraising in this sector. The challenge, of course, for Mnaara is to find private funds that benefit from experienced and capable fund managers, which aim to reduce risk and maximize returns. That's all we have time for in today's episode of the Startup Show. Goodbye.